You're just days away from your week 3 matchup. And I already know you're wondering, do I start this receiver or this receiver? Here are the 10 wide receivers who aren't studs, but you must start them this week. Beginning with Russell Gage, who needs to be in your lineups because he's trending to start week 3 and maybe even will be Tom Brady's #1 option. Mike Evans is suspended. Chris Godwin is highly unlikely to play. If he does, he'll be limited. And Julio, if he plays, won't be 100%. So it's Gage as likely the #1 option out there, and here's what you need to know. Without Calvin Ridley in 2021, Gage was great. In those 10 games, he averaged 14.3 fantasy points on 8 targets per game. He was a top 20 receiver, and this was in the number 29 scoring offense in Atlanta last year. Here's what this means. Tom Brady can trust Russell Gage. And not only was he a great fantasy producer, but he got open often. Top 12 both versus man and zone coverage last year in the entire league. And now he has a solid matchup versus the Packers. They have a good defense and a good secondary, but their slot cornerback Rasul Douglas, who's a little bit older now, has allowed a 100% catch rate so far this year. And Gage should be in the slot often. So start Gage and play this Jets wide receiver. And I'm talking about Elijah Moore, who's still the Jets #1 no matter how good Garrett Wilson played last week. And see for yourself, Elijah Moore played 66 snaps, Garrett Wilson just 43. That ends up meaning that Elijah Moore played 33% more snaps than the rookie Wilson. So here's another way to look at this. Moore is playing in 2 wide receiver sets when Wilson is still the backup to Corey Davis in those formations. Believe it or not, Elijah Moore actually leads the NFL with 99 routes run this year. That's great usage, but it's only led to 12 total targets. Now let's discuss something. Last year as a rookie, Elijah Moore was top 10 at beating man coverage, and he earned a target on 25% of his routes, which for a rookie is fantastic. But through 2 games this year, he's only earning a target on 12% of his routes, and now this is a concern, but it's a smaller sample, and you should not expect him to automatically become much worse of a receiver. He's likely going to start earning targets as soon as week 3. So start Moore before he breaks out and even try and trade for him, and then play this NFC wide receiver. And that would be Marquis Hollywood Brown, who earned 11 targets week 2. He now has 17 targets on the season, and 47% of these are high value targets, meaning that they're downfield, he's top 6 in that department, or they're red zone targets where he ranks 7th with 4 red zone and 4 deep targets. And this type of usage always leads to major upside. So start him and this week 2 letdown. And I'm talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, who only scored 4 points and saw 3 targets week 2. He's very similar to what the week 1 production of Mike Williams and Allen Robinson were. Guys we had a lot of hopes for in good offenses, but were letdowns. They bounce back the following week. I think Juju does that this week. Because here's the deal. Juju's snaps actually increased from week 1 to week 2. That's good to see. He ended up playing nearly 10% more snaps. And now he has a strong matchup. He's going to face Colts cornerback Kenny Moore for the majority of this game. And Moore so far this season ranks 94th out of 101 cornerbacks in coverage according to Pro Football Focus. Through 2 games, he's allowed 9 catches and 2 touchdowns. So go back to the well with Juju this week and then start this rookie. And that would be Drake London, who is a must start. The rookie has earned a target on 41% of his routes, which this says is 3rd in the NFL, but if you take out the wide receivers who have only ran a couple of routes, he's actually #1 in the NFL at earning targets. So here's what this means. London is elite at getting open, and it shows in the metrics. He's 7th right now amongst all wide receivers at beating man coverage, which is as rare as it gets for a rookie. This is like Odell Beckham Jr.'s rookie year type numbers. And a reminder, he's just 21 years old. Lock him in and then start this NFC wide receiver. And I'm talking about Brandon Iuku, who is in a fantastic spot. You've got Deebo Samuel playing more running back, which is leading to wide receiver 1 usage for Iuku. See for yourself. Last week with Deebo playing more running back because Elijah Mitchell was out for that game, you saw Iuku lead the team in wide receiver routes and snaps, and it posted 8 overall targets. And now Jimmy Garoppolo is his quarterback, and here's why this matters. Over his final 10 games last year, Brandon Iuku with Jimmy G averaged 13.6 fantasy points, which was a top 15 wide receiver finish for that second half of the year. And with Deebo still in the backfield, expect similar usage and start Iuku. And his division rival. And I'm talking about DK Metcalf, who quietly saw better usage week 2. Now, if you're just looking at the box scores, which is never good, he ended up seeing less targets. He went from 7 to 6 targets, so you might say, oh, how is it better usage? No, the underlying metrics are very encouraging. Let me explain. So this number right here, 4.1, is the average depth of target that DK Metcalf saw week 1, which is not good, only 4 yards downfield. There's no upside there. But in week 2, this number more than doubled to 9.2 yards per target. He was starting to get targeted more downfield, and more downfield targets lead to more explosive plays, touchdowns, and bigger receptions. So his usage is actually trending upwards, even though people aren't seeing it. This is great to take advantage of. Start DK and this Commander's wide receiver. And he was the best waiver wire ad after week 1, and this is Curtis Samuel, who is operating as the wide receiver 1 in Washington. He leads the team in targets, and he actually has 8 more than any other receiver, the 2nd place receiver, Terry McLaurin. And he's done it on less routes run than McLaurin, and here's what you need to know. Washington is literally building the offense around Samuel in many ways. plays. He's being schemed a lot of touches. And this is leading to him ending up being borderline top 10 in yards after the catch. They're scheming production his way, which is fantastic for fantasy, seeing that he's a priority for this offense. So start him in your flex position and then play this AFC stud. And I'm talking about Texans wide receiver Brandon Iuku. It's the perfect time to try and trade for him, but also play him because he only scored 9.4 points last week. However, he earned another 10 targets. And the man now has 22 targets on the year. He's averaging 10 targets per game with Davis Mills in his career, which is fantastic, but that's not all. Because week 3, he faces the Bears, who through 2 weeks ranked 27th in coverage. Expect Cooks to cash in on his volume this week. And because of that, I like his over 60.5 receiving yards. He just missed it by like 5 yards last week. And I also like Brandon Iuku, who we talked about, over 45.5 receiving yards. Now you can use the link in the description to take those props. And when you deposit the minimum of $10, you also get my weekly cheat sheet, which comes with rankings, projections, waiver wire tiers, player notes, and more. And here's the key piece. If you don't win your fantasy league, I'll refund that one-time payment of $10, so it's completely risk-free. If you want to take advantage of this offer that seems maybe too good to be true, yeah, risk-free, then click the link in the description to learn more. And then make sure Jacoby Myers is in your lineup because he just continues to quietly produce. Myers has earned a 36% target rate this year, which is top 10, but if you end up taking out the players who haven't ran that many routes and it's skewing the sample, he's number 6 in the NFL on his overall targets per route, which is elite. And it ranks ahead of guys like Devontae Adams, and his week 3 matchup is also solid. Myers will face the Baltimore Ravens secondary that we've seen be torched. Not only last year they gave up the most passing yards, but they're banged up and getting torched this year. They've allowed the most passing yards on the season, and it's not even close. They're by far allowing the most passing yards by 27% more than second place team Houston Texans. A great matchup for the receivers in New England and their number 1 option, Jacoby Myers. So start Jacoby with confidence week 3. And if you want to see the 7 running backs who aren't studs, but you should feel confident in starting this week, then check out this lovely video right here, you beautiful people. And if you're not already, hit the subscribe button.